Hello and welcome to that Cthulhu Jawn recap episode. We are a real play Call of Cthulhu podcast. I am George, the keeper of arcane lore, and with me are my friends, Chad.
Welcome to welcome to the show, guys.
Chuck.
Hey there, everybody.
And Jetty.
Hi.
Alright, so guys, this is a recap episode. We're going to talk about everything that happened in the first chapter of our story here. Well, let's start off by introducing the players and their characters. Let's start off with Chad. Chad, your character is Walter Pendergast.
It's true.
Can you describe Walter a little bit?
Yeah, I guess he's a tiny little guy in stature with his 20 points into strength and 40 points into dexterity, 40 into appearance. You know, he's not the most physical of individuals, but he loves his books, and his gray hair is showing through. Spectacles are often polished, ready to help him read his favorite books.
Walter's kind of an older nerd kind of character.
Definitely.
Yeah, but that's where his strengths lie, or in his knowledge and experience.
A firm believer that many answers can be found in books. Just need to know where to look.
Right. Speaking of believers, what does Walter believe about the otherworldly, at least at the beginning of our journey here?
In the beginning, I would say I would, kind of compare him to just a regular, everyday kind of person who, lives in the material world and goes to work and pays their taxes and doesn't really think too much. Might step around the ladder if there's somebody, working on the street, as opposed to walking under it. Probably doesn't really think too much about a broken mirror or, spilling salt or anything. But that sure changed quickly.
Well, walking under ladders is dangerous, and no one should do it anyway.
Not once, not never. It's bad luck, too.
Ladders. Where would we be without them? Not higher up.
Not in the Gold Club, our room.
Space.
Boy, I said that a lot of times wrong, didn't I?
I wasn't sure if it was on purpose or not.
It wasn't. All right, so next up we got Chuck, and your character is Lenny Cobb.
Hey, that's my name, man. Don't wear it out, eh?
Chuck, you did a great job just kind of staying in character the whole time, every time you talked as Lenny.
Agreed.
Got to compliment you on that.
Well, thanks.
But Lenny, let's talk about Lenny a little bit. Lenny's kind of connected, right?
I guess so. I mean, I don't know how well yet. You hear a lot of talk, but...
Some of the secretaries aren't impressed.
kind of nervous about it the whole time. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea.
But he's been known to involve himself in certain activities that the mafia may want him to do, such as smuggling on his trade routes.
Yeah, I mean, that's he prefers it that way. You don't got to deal with no people, just product, and all you got to do is move it, hide it.
All right. So he's not the most personable of people in general.
Not really, no. I don't think he goes out of his way to converse and be around others.
Right. And you started the game off with Lenny having a very low PAL score, which means that his sanity was also pretty low.
Yeah. His luck and sanity started out pretty low. I kind of thought maybe he had seen some stuff, and having played this Call of Cthulhu once before, I don't know, almost like a wild card type of character. I didn't think he would last this long, honestly.
I gotcha. But you've kind of had a mechanism for dealing with Lenny's experience with the otherworldly, and that would be that he just doesn't believe any of it.
No, I wanted to avoid being a believer as long as I could. Honestly, maybe he's seen some things, but there's one thing. I mean, what are the odds of there being like other horrifying creatures out there, or wacky witchcraft or what have you?
What are the odds, indeed?
Wacky witchcraft.
As he might call it that. I wouldn't.
And then we also have Jenny and her character, Heather Snakehole.
Yep.
Heather is a bartender at a place that has become almost a character in and of itself on this show. That would be the Fireside Tavern. Fireside Tavern is a dive bar. So Heather doesn't make a whole lot of money working there, but just enough to get by. How would you describe Heather there, Jenny?
She's like, youngish. She's like cute, but for where she works, she's like hot. Like she would never be considered, I don't know, she'd be like a cutie pie. She's like a little naive.
Yeah.
But secretly kind of smart.
Loves her horror scopes.
Loves them.
Yes. Speaking of which, she's really, really into horoscopes, psychics, that kind of stuff, right?
Superstitions, all of it.
She's into offing them.
It was an accident.
Heather was one of the first ones. Yeah. Heather was one of the first ones to kind of embrace the otherworldly in this campaign. Mostly because I think she believes in things that are not just materialistic of this earth.
Didn't hurt that she saw the creature in the gallery too, whereas some of us did not.
Yeah.
I think that kind of set the pace.
Walter's been walking through a lot of this game like Mr. Magoo. Just kind of not actively avoiding things, but just not noticing them.
It's all in the rolls.
It is.
You called it magooing, like in the last episode.
Yeah, I think
That's
he's
amazing.
probably not somebody who would catch on to the inner workings of that journal and what you were kind of implying on the phone. Took him a little bit to get there.
All right, so guys, our story kind of centers around this one character, this one NPC named Mildred Thiebley. And Millie, it happens to be Walter's kind of love interest, and is also Heather Snakehole's godmother, who she refers to as Aunt Millie.
Not anymore.
Love interest or obsession?
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. But Heather, of course, is a bartender at the Fireside Tavern. Lenny is a regular there.
I'll go Dave.
Also a regular there with Lenny, and his buddy is Tommy Slick. Tommy Slick is also a mafia-tied character.
Well, he was.
Right. So Millie eventually goes to Walter and asks him about a statue that she received. Very disturbing piece of artwork by an artist named Mikhail Jakanovich. And what does the artwork look like?
Like a man eating his own head.
Like a man eating his own head.
Very abstract, right up my alley.
Which is so easy to picture.
But Millie asks Walter out on a date to Chez Vivez, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Probably not.
Millie also tells Heather about the date and the statue too. So what happens behind the scenes, kind of what happened within the story that you guys weren't aware of. That afternoon, Millie takes the statue to the Ventucci Art Gallery to get the statue appraised to see if it's worth any money. And the curator of the art gallery, Vanessa Bellagrosso, is also mob-tied. So she contacts Chucky Merlino, who is Lenny's mob boss, the capo, so to speak, that Lenny works under. Chucky Merlino is the one who's going to want the statue, or want the money from the sale of the statue. So what happens is Tommy Slick and another mob guy, Little Nicky, go to Millie's house. They have a struggle with her and shoot her in the head. That gets blood on the statue. Now the statue is no ordinary statue. It has a magical component to it, a dark magic component to it, that had a protection spell on it. However, getting blood on the statue broke the protection spell that was on the statue, and the dying Millie on the floor suddenly turned into a monster, a child of the Windwalker. She then proceeded to eat Little Nicky.
So that's where he went.
Tommy Slick got away with the statue, but he has gone completely crazy from what he has seen. And he gets committed to Byberry Mental Institution. Millie, on the other hand, after this, just kind of goes off in the wilderness for a while. And you don't see her for a minute. The next day is the date that Walter was supposed to have with Millie. Walter goes to Chez Vivez, and it looks like he stood up. Walter works at a bookstore that Millie frequents. Walter got Millie's address from the bookstore records, and he goes to her house where he finds the scene of just blood on the table and floor, and Millie is missing. He then calls the police. Then we get to Detective Luke Thompson.
What a piece of yellow
When
glasses
he showed up,
shit.
I pictured Horatio from the one cop show. Every time he takes them off, somebody's screaming in the background. That guy's awesome.
So Luke Thompson dresses kind of 70s style, not the most stylish person, but he happens to have ties to the mafia, which no one knew at the time. So he didn't seem to help much on the investigation on the disappearance of Millie.
Even though the case was practically handed to him.
Yeah.
Fucking son of a bitch.
He could have saved lives.
Easily.
Shady.
At Millie's house, at the scene, Heather gets there, and Walter is already there since he's found the blood and everything. Heather gets to the scene and thinks that Walter is the one who's responsible for Millie's disappearance. There was a kind of a back and forth there.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's great.
That's him. That's the guy. Arrest him. What?
Yeah.
What?
She was not the biggest fan of Walter at first.
Oh, now we're like BFFs.
So Walter takes some time to kind of look into what this statue is. And he looks into the artist Mikhail Jakanovich and learns that Jakanovich was imprisoned in the Russian Gulag system in 1940. Later on, we get to Lenny and his boss, Chucky Merlino, who's, I guess, typical mob boss kind of guy.
I kind of like him. I like him a lot more than his son. He's pretty nice overall. He likes me. That helps.
I like him too.
He is a benevolent boss, is he not?
He's all right. He does his thing. I don't want to cross him, but
No. But Chucky tells Lenny to go and kill Tommy Slick, who has gone insane is in Byberry Mental Institution.
sorry, guy.
But he doesn't want Tommy blabbing any mafia secrets. So he tells Lenny to go and off him. And Lenny follows through with that.
I'm a good soldier, I guess.
How did Lenny feel about having to kill his buddy? I mean, I guess Tommy wasn't his best friend or anything.
I mean, you know, I worked with him. He hung out at the bar, hung out at, and, you know, it made for convenience, I suppose. I guess it was the closest thing to a friend he did have. It fucked him up a little bit, I think. But ultimately, it's better than getting killed yourself and then seeing him like that in the hospital. I mean, maybe it was better to put him down. Because he did seem like he was going to blab, and he probably knew about me, too. So I ain't going
That's
down
true.
for no Tommy Slick or nobody.
Yeah, cold-blooded.
Especially given everything he said was true.
Yeah, he didn't really seem to have any qualms about doing it.
Why would I believe him, though?
Yeah, that's true. You had no idea at the time.
Came alive, Lenny. And it had claws.
The cold.
After Lenny kills Tommy Slick, Skinny Joey, who is Chucky Merlino's son,
The worst.
The worst. Oh my god.
kind of a pushy little prick.
You don't see many guys with daddy issues, but he's got them.
Oh, dad. Just saying daddy. His voice, everything about him.
So Skinny Joey tells Lenny, "Hey, you're gonna make a special delivery. You make the special delivery, I'm gonna fire one right off the side of your fucking head."
Yeah, he's a great character.
Such a Fredo.
I don't like him, but he's a good character.
So Skinny Joey tells Lenny to pick up a special delivery that Tommy Slick was supposed to pick up. When he gets to the special delivery, it turns out to be the stolen statue. Heather goes to Detective Thompson to see if there's any news on Millie's disappearance, and that's when she gets a good psychology roll and learns that Thompson is lying about not knowing about the statue or possibly Millie's disappearance. She just doesn't know exactly what he's lying about, but she knows that he isn't telling the truth.
Sneaky sneak.
In the meantime, Lenny goes to pick up the special delivery for the Ventucci Art Gallery early. He actually winds up breaking into the warehouse where it's stored.
I felt like I was getting set up, so I wanted to get it done and be done with it and not hang on to it or be involved with it for too long.
I was wondering why you went to go pick it up so early.
Yeah.
That's some fun insight.
Wait, what did you think you were getting set up for?
I don't know, but I know that my buddy just went nuts. Another guy went missing, and the guy that went missing was, I think, the one that was supposed to deliver it originally.
Oh, okay.
And I just felt weird, so I kind of just wanted to take it when nobody would have expected that, and then get it taken care of, instead of waiting around to get caught.
Yeah, it was kind of the same reason Walter was happy to get rid of it.
Yeah, fuck that head.
When you do go to drop off this statue at the art gallery, Vanessa Bellagrosa is not happy at all that you're dropping the statue off early because it's not insured yet.
Yeah, but I made it happen.
Persuaded her eventually.
Half of it was just ignoring her and just wheeling it in the back door while she was yelling at me.
It's like, you're not about to open that, are you? No.
Creak! So during that time, though, you kind of fell under the spell of this statue. The statue had a strange draw to it, and it makes people kind of want it for themselves.
I'd like to say, too, props for starting a game with such low POW and sanity, especially with your prior knowledge of how important those things are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, it's crazy. I am also surprised you last as long as you did. But Walter goes to the fireside after finding the number on Millie's end table. And he goes to the fireside and meets Heather again and kind of tells her once more that he had nothing to do with Millie's disappearance. And Heather kind of starts to feel bad for him at that point, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like kind of like a little old man. But also I still kind of like, why are you here though? Like, I never heard of you before. You find the blood, and now you're like, at my work? You fucking creep. I'm sorry. Sometimes I just go back into it. And I just...
But now we know he's just very aloof. This
Yeah.
socially awkward.
He's just magooing his way through life. It's just like, it's kind of working out for you.
I didn't like him at the start neither. We never got along, but then I never gave him a chance, it turns out. I just misunderstood him this whole
I love the
time.
Lenny Walter relationship. It's like, what? No longer people just yelling at each other out their window.
You should have came over for a glass of whiskey earlier.
Now they're like knocking for each other.
No. One time.
They're helping each other shovel out spots.
Truck driver leaving all these chairs in the street to make sure there's room for his cab when he gets home. Gosh.
So the statue goes to auction eventually. Everyone gets invited one way or another to the auction. At the auction, there is a wealthy socialite there, Gordon Riles, who exclaims that he will be the one who wins the auction and no one else should even bother trying to bid.
Money.
Mm-hmm.
Also spotted there are two Russian fellas with the big trench coats and the, what do you call those big tall hats again?
Ushanka, I believe.
The Ushanka hats.
The ones with the flaps on the sides? Like the fur ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
The big fur hats. They kind of stand out in the crowd because they're wearing, what did you call it? The communist starter set? But the statue eventually gets rolled out at the auction, and then the display window in the front of the auction house shatters. After the shattering of the window, a strong wind with a lot of snow started blowing in. And out of the wind and snow, I think both Lenny and Heather saw a monstrous figure within the snow. Heather failed her sanity roll. Lenny passed his. But during the attack, there were several people that were in the crowd for the auction that were maimed, mangled, and killed. Lenny went to hide in Vanessa's office. During that time, he kind of peeked his eye out the door a little bit.
Well, I didn't want to leave entirely. I didn't want to run away. So that's why I kind of wanted to go to the office so I can look through, the door and maybe not be noticed, see what's happening, and maybe get my hands on the statue myself.
Because you loved it.
Yes.
At the time, I hadn't resisted it yet. I was still thinking about it a lot.
But it's a good thing that you were peeking out that door, because there is another dude who tried to swipe up the statue during the chaos.
Not on my watch.
Yeah, the character that was stealing the statue was Gordon Riles' dude. Didn't know that at the time, but if you had, interrogated him or something, it would have come up.
In no time when he's gasping for air on the ground.
But during all this, while Lenny's chasing down this dude who's trying to run away with the statue, Heather notices on this monster that she's seeing, she sees a tiny, small circular scar on the monster's head. This, of course, is the scar from the bullet wound that Millie received before she initially turned into the monster.
She was unloaded on.
She was unloaded on was the exact
My own
phrase.
godmother.
Which is why I thought she was dead the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Lenny definitely thought she was dead. Everyone else, she's missing,
I think everyone thought she was dead.
I don't know. Well, she was missing.
Walter
everyone
was
else.
hopeful for her safe return, only because
there was no
that's what he
body.
wanted.
Heather
But
thought she was missing.
I knew she got unloaded on. I thought she got dumped somewhere.
Unloaded on is pretty serious.
Yeah.
Yes. So during this whole thing, Lenny did see the monster, and he failed his sanity roll, but we let him use luck points
Yeah.
to make up the difference.
I got
now,
lucky.
apparently, that is not allowed in this game, and we will not do it from now on.
It's not allowed.
But we can't help what we've done before.
I think Heather and Walter should get one. I mean,
Nope.
it's
You're probably much more sane.
only fair.
It's only fair, but I'm not going to be fair. Walter, during the attack at the auction, while Walter is trying to escape, he noticed someone shout something, and it sounded like it was in Russian. And then all of a sudden, all the wind, all of the noise, the monster was all gone. And he noticed that one of the Russian guys were weakened, and the other guy was trying to hold him up. But he still hightailed it out of there.
See you.
During the attack, the statue actually wound up getting bounced around a lot and wound up getting damaged. The curator was very upset about the damaged statue. After all this, Heather and Walter both leave messages for Detective Thompson. The messages have only served to piss Thompson off further. Vanessa Bellagrosso, the curator of the art museum, contacts Walter because she got his business card, asks Walter to fix the statue, and brings the statue to Walter's bookstore.
Who knew those business cards would come in such use throughout the game?
Very handy. So Lenny thinks he saw a guy in a costume at the gallery art attack.
What else could it have been?
He remains skeptical the whole time.
Art attack. I like that.
Latex costumes and special effects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, these are just obviously, it's like those movies about those effects guys that become, heist masters with their special effects. But yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as monsters. Get out of here, come on.
Where men?
So a couple days later after that whole thing, Heather gets a message that Millie is in Roxborough Memorial Hospital and in bad condition. She, of course, rushes there. She finds out that Millie was found near the Ballard Kenwood area at the edge of some woods. Of course, Millie was the monster that attacked the art gallery. The shouting that you heard in Russian were the Russians casting a spell to banish the Windwalker. When the Windwalker was banished, Millie returned to her normal form and wound up crawling to the edge of the woods that she returned to.
She was sleepy.
Naked.
Needed a little nap.
Now,
Naked and bloody.
that banishment spell, is that, it also had a very negative effect on our buddy there, didn't it?
Yes, the magics come with a high price to pay. Eugene's fingers, you find out later on, have been turned black from frostbite and will never recover.
Sorry, dude.
But he kind of saved some people's bacon
He helped us out.
by doing that.
Yeah.
It's just one hand of fingies. It's not.
He's got other fingers.
So Heather visits Millie in the hospital. During the visit in the hospital,
Yeah.
fails.
Look, you didn't- I
Jenny
think
fails a
you're-
couple rolls for
I
Heather.
think you're gonna bring it up. I mean, it's really not. Just like a minor detail.
So trying to pass a spot hidden roll, Jenny fails it, and then she fails a pushed roll, and gets kicked out of the hospital for being too drunk. That must have felt nice.
What happens?
One of the high points.
Are you drunk? No, are you?
This is a hospital.
I had like 2 drinks like 3 hours ago.
That's how drunk people lie.
Always.
So Heather decides, after all of this craziness, and with Millie being back and everything, she decides to seek some alternative advice from a psychic, Miss Selena, who is the psychic on South. Although, of course, it is not on South Street, it's actually on Bainbridge.
Just off.
Just off of South. But psychic off of South doesn't have the same ring to it.
And, you know, she saved $1,000 a month in rent.
Trudels.
But she goes to seek advice from Miss Selena. Miss Selena tells her that she needs to see Millie in person to get a reading off of Millie. And she tells Heather that Walter had nothing to do with Millie's disappearance. Heather, of course, believes all that because it's from a supernatural source.
Yeah, Walter's told me like 25 times and like has facts to back it up, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, dude.
I'm
Let me
literally
talk.
doing everything I can to find Millie.
Let me go talk to this strange woman. See what
Have you ever...
her teeth in a jar say.
in the meantime, Walter begins to fix the statue, which has a big crack in it. When he looks inside the statue, he finds that it's hollow and that there is a scroll inside of it. The scroll, however, is all in Russian. Walter does not know how to read Russian at all. The one owner of the bookshop, Headley, offers to help Walter with the translation of the Russian scroll because he is a big fan of Russian literature.
Walter is stubborn.
Walter, however, refuses help.
I'm gonna read it myself.
I don't need your help. I'll learn Russian and then I'll do it.
We have books here.
Yeah.
He used a translation book instead, which causes him to have to wait a couple more, I think 2 more days it was,
Yeah.
to translate
He had
everything.
some late nights too. Staying up all late, reading Russian.
I mean, that's like Walter's thing, though. I mean, he lives for finding stuff like that, needing to research things and find other books to find the answers.
You wash your hands, turn the page. Wash your hands, turn the page.
That kind of talk gets Millie all bothered.
They love books.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's definitely the kind of guy that would like smell a new book, or not a new book, but like smell a book that's new to him.
Books.
Give me a sniff of that book.
Delicious.
So during that time, Detective Thompson calls Heather, tells him basically never to call him again. He is getting angrier at the attempts to find out what's going on with the statue. Meanwhile, Heather and Lenny, I think the next day, go to visit Millie in the hospital and find out that she is doing way better than she was the day before. The day before, she wasn't responsive, I think.
I didn't believe it.
But the next day, she was sitting up in bed talking
Getting hungry.
Hungrier
and seemed like she was doing pretty good. So after that, Heather gets the idea to go back to the art gallery and get the list of names from everyone who was at the auction from the art gallery. And as a ruse to do this, she goes back and says that she left her coat there, which she did, but it gave her an excuse to go back.
because I was dressed very, very, very fancy for the auction. I
Yes.
feel like we left that out. How amazing Heather looked, just like super rich.
Was it a long faux leopard print jacket?
knee-length leopard jacket.
And her designer imposter white diamonds.
So fancy.
Yes.
Just need a sound file of diamonds like showering onto a table that's like glass or something. Just hear them ping, 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 ping. Every time she walks into the gallery.
While they're at the art gallery, Lenny uses a little sleight of hand, a little stealth, to grab the list of names from the auction.
I coughed while I ripped it out. It worked.
Yes.
Somehow it worked.
Oh, that's right. The old cough. No.
After stealing that list of names, Walter eventually finishes the translation of the scroll. The scroll speaks of Jukanovich's escape from the Gulag and how he came across the token of Ithaca.
The vile token.
Vile token.
The vile token of Ithaca, which he then eventually hid inside of the statue. Walter doesn't know if I think at this point, does Walter believe everything he's reading?
Not really. I mean, he hadn't seen the creature in the gallery, and though some troubling things were certainly happening, and he knew of the people who were attacked at the gallery and ran about that bitch.
I want to know, like, I want to see it from Walter's eyes, like, in my head. Like, there's just, like, snow and blood, but, like, nothing else, is happening. There's, like, bodies. But it's, like...
That's
like
when he
just
reached for his spectacles, because...
buttoning his coat up.
Is it really snowing
And
inside?
then he was waiting at the coat check for someone to help him get his coat.
The weather report said nothing about snow. Those meteorologists are wrong more than any profession.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point, he really had no reason to believe in all the craziness that was going on, because he hadn't really seen anything or experienced anything firsthand. So I think to him it was more about just, keeping a good reputation for fixing the statue and getting it back to, the apparent owner.
Right.
And,
After translating the scroll, though, Walter figures out that there is this token inside of the statue. Now, the token, of course, is what is the magical component of the statue and what makes people have a draw to it.
And I think the realization of that being inside and actually, like, seeing it, I think that's what really kind of turned the page for Walter, because of all the, kind of clues that he'd come across and the things that he had translated and just everything kind of adding up. That's when he was like, could this, like, actually be cursed? Like, this is kind of weird, and these are a lot of things adding up that would be unusually coincidental. That's when it started to get real.
Right, but you never actually pulled that magical token out of the statue, correct?
No, it was more about his reputation and completing the job and getting paid.
So, after Walter finds this scroll and translates it, Lenny's boss, Chucky, says that he needs to have a meeting with him. During this meeting, Chucky reveals that he is the benefactor of the sale of the statue, and Chucky offers Lenny 10% of the sale of the statue for being the one who recaptured it from the other guy who was trying to steal it. This is when Chucky tells Lenny that he may be an important part of the family. With the next day, Heather visits Millie again in the hospital. This time, Millie is out of bed and exercising and complaining that the food at the hospital is no good. The nurse at the hospital says that even though she complains that the food is no good, she's still eating everything that they put in front of her.
Nom, 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 nom.
It's just not enough of it.
Millie's appetite seems to be increasing at this point. Walter eventually finishes restoring the statue. However, during this time, there begins to be reports of wild animal attacks around the city.
It weren't no bear.
I seen a bear.
I seen a bear. It weren't no bear.
I feel like Lenny doesn't even believe in, like, bats. Even though they're real, it's, like, too far-fetched for him. There's no freaking way. Sleep upside down and they fly at night? I don't think so.
So these attacks that are happening around the city are actually people from the art auction who have been injured by Millie's monstrous form. The curse gets passed to people that have been attacked and injured by the monster, specifically bitten by the monster.
You don't want that cursed saliva in your bloodstream.
Right, and that's where these attacks actually are. There are other people starting to turn into monsters. Later on, Walter tries to see if there's a way to prove that Millie owns the Jakanovich statue. They kind of talk about maybe if there's some paperwork or lawyers involved. And Millie brings up Schroeder and Shapiro Law Office. Now, that venue's never explored by you guys. Any reason for that?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that I wasn't really able to get to that kind of truth. There were some other things I wanted to do, but with the repeated warnings from the mob friend, well, maybe he doesn't know that he's a mob friend, but I mean, the repeated warnings that Walter, I feel, would be smart enough to heed were enough to kind of steer him away from that course of action, though I did really want to explore that a bit.
I had warned them once before already, I think, or more so, I guess, Heather, and I guess I let Walter know that they just shouldn't involve themselves with the statue because of the people involved with it. But it went a little further, and I had to end up telling them again. And I think at that point it was kind of dropped, and then, we had so many monsters on our hands.
So many monsters. Mm-hmm. So, Millie keeps getting better. Eventually, she goes home. Very early. I think it's only 3 days that she's in the hospital. The same day that she goes home, Walter calls her, and they have a little back and forth. But at the end of it, Millie says, "I got to go, Walter. I got to get back to work." She has work tomorrow, the next day.
And they let her come back to work.
And they just let her come back to work. So when that happened, I was just trying to think of an excuse to get off the phone with Walter, and I wound up saying, I gotta go to work tomorrow. I gotta go to bed early because it was late at night. And
It seems
it
like
was a mistake.
She was feeling well enough to get back to work, but I like that it was a mistake.
No,
because it made sense.
It did make sense. I didn't think it was a
I was
mistake.
just like,
just now.
holy shit, she is kicking.
Total mistake.
And she loves books.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. She's like,
She really loves
sniff
books.
some of those.
I need a distraction from all this food.
Plus, there's like a little food truck out front of the library that makes these wonderful cheesesteaks.
Yes. Nice grease cart.
So the next day, after Millie's home and she returns to work, on her lunch break, she goes to the bookshop to see Walter to make sure that Walter's statue is the same statue that she had inherited.
I felt silly, too, because I actually forgot that I had suggested she come by and take a look at it. And she's like, well, don't you want me to confirm that it's... I'm like, oh yeah. Whoops. That probably would be good. But I think at that point I was also under the impression that it would be better for Millie to stay far, far away from that. So I think I...
As a player,
kind of let that take over. Yeah.
But you do reveal the statue to Millie, and she kind of zones out on it a little bit.
I can't believe you weren't dead meat when that happened.
Yeah, especially when she was like talking about leaving with it. I was just like, shit, this is about to get ugly.
She was like, why don't you just give it to me right now?
You were gonna get shot again, Millie?
Trying to get
I thought I was gonna have to kill her. I really thought I was gonna get sent to kill Millie and then have to like lie to Heather about it.
Wow.
Oh
Man, that would have been good.
I didn't.
But later on that night, after the visit with Walter, Heather takes Millie begrudgingly to Miss Selena, the psychic, and
Hell yes.
During the psychic reading, Miss Selena begins to have a heart attack, and Heather goes to kind of hold her up or make sure she's okay. And the words she says before she passes out to Heather is that her aunt is cursed and that they're both in grave danger. And with that, she passes out, and Heather tries to perform CPR on her.
She was having a heart attack, right? Or allegedly?
Yeah, she needed her pills. I had to go get
That's right. She had a heart condition.
Yeah.
Her assistant was screaming something about that, right?
Yeah, get her pills.
And you're like, oh, I got this. And you just start punching her in the
I was
sternum.
like, I got first aid, out of the way.
So you start CPR on her.
Freaking power bomb.
Crack her fucking rib.
Let's fucking go.
You might have punctured a lung.
Is that not how you do that? You don't do it? Not with your elbow?
close.
No.
No,
Okay.
you don't macho man that shit.
Your heel works better.
Also, when I first saw the psychic, she told me to bring her in.
Yes, she definitely
It
did.
was because she was
I
saying
was
like
excited to see
Get a
that.
something
reading
is
off her.
spooky. Yeah. She looked at her teeth and stuff.
So, the next day, Lenny gets put on a mission for kind of a standard smuggling mission to go out to Toms River, New Jersey.
Almost messed that one up too.
Almost.
Toms River, New Jersey has a St. Luke's where he was going to drop off a bunch of Virgin Mary statues that were stuffed with cocaine.
Oh, I did
Wait,
drop them
was it
off.
St. Jude's?
As far as I'm concerned.
Prior to you,
You know,
but prior to you
was
dropping it
successful.
off, you had to go to a way station.
Yeah.
At the way station, you wind up telling a cop where you were going.
Mm-hmm.
A cop eventually finds all of the cocaine that you have dropped off at the St. Jude in Toms River.
I was already on my way home.
Oh yeah, you figured it
was
wasn't your
gone.
problem at that point.
It wasn't my problem when he was trying to search the back. I rolled my law and got him to go away.
Right. And you did get him to go away from searching the trailer of your truck.
At the time, yeah.
However, he did wind up going to where you said you were going.
I goofed up there, yeah.
And Skinny Joey was not too happy about this. He was yelling at you up and down and saying that you shouldn't have told him where you went.
Yeah, but it turns out he goofed up, huh?
That's right, yeah. So it turns out that Skinny
I
Joey
thought I was dead.
Skinny Joey did not pay off the Jersey police,
Which he should have.
which he should have, and that's why he wound up getting caught. So Skinny Joey's dad, Chucky, was pretty mad at him about that.
Yeah, save my bacon.
In the meantime, back at the bookshop, Walter gets 14 volumes of an old encyclopedia that some dude drops off, just trying to make some quick cash.
Supposedly 14.
Right. So here's the thing. Walter failed his initial appraisal roll. So he might not know everything that's going on with those books. However, the books that he does have, he notices that are highlighted and marked up strangely. And there's little notes in the sides that talk about serpent people and the Aquariid meteor shower. So that might lead to something else down the line, but has no impact on the first chapter of our story.
I don't know anything about that. That's fun.
So Walter takes the statue back to the Ventucci Art Gallery.
Wait, actually, let me back it up
Sure.
one step,
Back it
though.
up.
Back that thing up.
I don't know if it's something that I shouldn't know in character or not, but I failed a psychology roll when I was trying to gauge the character of the person who was selling the books to me. Is that
Right.
something that is discussable, or is that something that's better left?
That is not discussable right now.
Yeah, no worries there then. Yeah, I totally suspected that dude was like, either like up to no good or like, maybe looking to hold the place up or something. And later when it
Right.
came to leaving the place and leaving Headley and Theodore alone, I was kind of like, is this dude going to come back and fuck with them when they're trying to close up or something like that?
Right.
So I was kind of happy to see that he wasn't, or at least that he was legitimately selling books.
I picked that up as the beginnings of the seeds for the next chapter.
Okay.
Once I realized the books had nothing to do with what we were doing, but they seemed a little strange to me. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, I bet that's gonna come into play, soon.
Right.
And I think it will still.
But after Walter buys those books for only $100, he winds up taking the statue that he had fixed back to the Ventucci Art Gallery. He tells Vanessa about the token inside the statue and the fact that this statue was made after all of his other works. Vanessa's not happy about this because she thinks that this means that the statue or the majority of the Djukanovic works will go down in value because there may be more of them out there. But Walter, you try to convince her that that's not the case, that this is probably more valuable now than it was before.
Certainly to select clientele, sure. If they didn't care about the art and really just cared about what was inside, I could see people paying top dollar for something like that.
But they would be cursed.
It's like a bonus treasure.
Don't go bleeding on your antiques, everybody.
Don't do it. You will get Jumanji. Like, it's no question. Just throw anything that you get your blood on away. I suggest it to anyone that's listening. Like, you get blood on something, you cut your hand on glass, throw it away, throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
Burn the house down,
Glass.
leave, cut your own heart out, throw it in the fire, and just don't be an idiot.
So,
This shit ain't real.
Heather and Lenny have this list of names from the art gallery. Heather convinces Walter to call the 2 Russian-sounding names on the list.
Because we remembered they yelled something. It was weird. And we knew Jukanovic was Russian, and we surmised at the time they had something to do with the attempted theft.
Right.
You know, when those guys in costumes came in with their snow machines and wind machines.
And Walter just taught himself Russian, so why not just...
Practice.
He hears of the 2 guys, Eugene and Ivan, and he meets them at the Gold Room, which I tended to say the wrong name of,
The Golden
I don't know,
Place.
15 times, something like that.
I love it. I love it so much. Just my favorite part.
The Golden Room, the Gold Place.
Gold
Yeah.
space.
It's just the Gold Room.
Gold Club.
Gold pub.
Gold Club, that was one of them.
The gold. I think you said golden one time too. Like
Probably.
I think you said the Golden Club. I love it.
But Walter meets Eugene and Ivan at the Gold Room. They tell him all about Jukanovic, how he was found by their small village, and they tell him about Ithaca and the children of the Windwalker. Ithaca, of course, being the great old one, the great Windwalker. And Lenny trails him at this point and just kind of notices him talking to the Russian guys. They meet up later, and Walter explains everything that he learned from the Russians to Lenny. The Russians, of course, are looking to kill people that are on the list from the art gallery, trying to stop the spread of the children of the Windwalker. Because every time one of these things bites someone, it turns them into a monster.
I'm pretty sure those guys were just going through the names, killing everybody, regardless of whether or not they were bitten or not. I mean...
That is true. You didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, and then I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
Walter, what did you just
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. But they were just killing everyone on the
Yeah.
list.
So I'm glad he left some names off.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they said there was only 8 names left, I was like, wait a minute. Not that many people got hurt. What the hell?
You didn't give it to him yet at this point in the plot. But
Shoot that.
About to.
Spoiler alert.
But back at the truck depot, Lenny gets introduced to Detective Thompson by Chucky.
Yeah!
Chucky tells Lenny that Detective Thompson is basically on the mob payroll. And he tells Lenny to tell Heather and Millie to back off. Again, this time, even worse.
And then I'm like, oh man, great. This will be fun, you know? How do I get them to listen?
Get unloaded on by a cop this time.
I'm like surprised now that like you're telling me that he's connected, that he hasn't tried to kill me.
Well, they knew I knew you.
He was already mad at me before. Like, I'm surprised they weren't like, Lenny, kill your
I don't
friend.
know if he's like murder cop yet. He's just a homicide cop. That's similar, I guess, now that I think about it.
Murder cop.
Wait, what?
He makes people disappear.
Oh, like a murderer cop.
Yeah.
Or like looks up murders. Gotcha.
Makes moita happen.
So, Millie, at this point, the date between Heather and Walter is coming up, and Millie is getting pretty nervous about the date. She, however, at this point can't recall what happened to her at all. She says that there was 2 guys that she can't really describe that broke into her house, and the next thing she knows, she was in the hospital.
She was very nonchalant about like the story, and it's like, and next thing I know, I woke up naked in a ditch, you know, and now I'm working again, so life goes on.
Thank God they let me come back
Real
to work.
hungry.
And no one wants to hear me complain.
Because Lenny was there at the hospital when I
was
was like,
pleased
could
that
you
she
describe
could.
to people? She's like, I probably could. And then like never, she was just like, man,
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah.
I gotta get some coffee. I'll be right back.
Yeah, her mouth is full.
She
the whole
never
time.
really
She couldn't-
talked to the cops that much. But at any rate, all three of you guys kind of decide that you're done with the statue, that you don't want anything to do with it anymore, and you kind of all cheers on it at the bar at one point. Hey, I'll do a shot to that. Then Lenny and Walter decide to leave the bar, get some cheesesteaks from Pat's King Estates. During the walk there, the snow starts to kick up, just like it did at the art gallery. And they start to see eyes within the snow.
It's getting a creepy feeling.
You get a real creepy feeling.
Started jogging.
You and Walter kind of book it.
I didn't want to look
back to the bar, back to the fireside
And he
tavern.
still didn't know what was going on. He was like, "Oh, we're running now, huh?"
Yeah, I was gonna say, big surprise. Walter didn't see the eyes or anything.
Magooing
And
again.
he's like, come on, you want to pick up the pace?
You really want to eat your cheesesteak? Oh, okay.
Come on, let's get that blood pumping. It's cold out here.
Look, I don't know what I saw.
After you guys actually leave the bar, though, the same thing happens again, almost as if you guys were being hunted by something. You hear the howl of this creature, and it appears right in front of you. There's a fight that happens after that. Walter winds up getting bit, and he can actually feel the curse flowing through him when he gets bit by this thing.
Yeah, but not before unloading some rounds into this thing. He pulled out that Derringer with the quickness.
I said a little pew pew.
Now, here's the thing. The Windwalkers have 6-point armor, which means if you did 7 points of damage to it, you'd only do 1 point of damage.
How many hit points do they have?
16.
That's not too bad, but yeah, that sucks. You need to get some big hits.
And speaking of big hits, while you guys were facing off against this thing, Ivan and Eugene whip a car around. Turns out they've been trailing Walter. Probably going to kill him.
Oh no, I didn't even think that.
Yeah.
I'm so stupid. Jesus.
But they see him fight this thing, and Ivan comes out with a sawed-off shotgun. I wind up rolling a crit
Save the day.
for it and doing, I think it's something ridiculous, like maximum 8d6 damage, which is like 48,
Yeah.
I think. So winds up doing 48 hit points of damage to this thing that has 16 hit points, and blew a hole right through its stomach. Now, after this monster gets the hole blown through its stomach, everyone sees it start to transform back into a person. This, I think, is the point where Lenny starts to kind of become a believer.
Look, I don't know what I saw. I know that was a guy.
Some kind of weirman.
It wasn't a costume.
Imagine being the residents of the house that all happened in front of. You come out the next day and there's just shredded innards like splattered all over your
Yeah.
porch and steps and
Yeah,
sidewalk.
it's Philly.
A heartburning.
Someone be
it's
like,
like-
just wash it off with a hose.
Okay.
Um,
Like, they'd be more mad that there was snow on the ground and they have to shovel out a spot than they'd be about the guts.
after they wind up blowing this hole through the child of the Windwalker, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's dead. The Russians know that the only way to truly kill this thing is to cut out its heart and burn it. When this thing is completely killed, Walter's curse will be lifted. And during the time when they burn the heart, there's that jump scare that happened when the corpse suddenly shot up, and it made you roll sanity. That was fun.
I didn't know Walter was in so much danger there.
Right.
Jeez.
I didn't
They could've
think
just
about it
killed
until
him
right
and
now.
Moved on and left him with the other body.
Totally.
Damn.
He had less than a day before he turned. If they didn't get
I didn't think
in
about
there.
it once. I was like, yeah, you have
Put
to
his
go
heart
with
out.
them.
Burn it.
Right.
Of course.
After they cut out this guy's heart and burn it, Walter goes with them back to their rented room in Bustleton. And they show Walter the Zub Starogoboka. They call it the Zub for short. And it is rumored to be a tooth from the great Windwalker, Ithaca. And that it can point towards anything that's under the influence of the power of Ithaca. This is when Eugene shows Walter the blackened fingertips that he got from using the banishment spell. And he explains the line of the curse to Walter, that if you kill the child of the Windwalker that infected you, before the next moon that the curse will be lifted from you.
Not to be confused with the next full moon.
It's just the next moon that rises. So, after all this, and realizing the seriousness of the situation, Walter decides to give the Russians Millie's address, knowing that she is the source of everything.
Bye.
And the Russians wanted Walter to come with them to Millie's house.
And I kind of hinted at that too originally. Thinking back, I was like, I may need you to, trail me again. Because at that point, I wasn't 100% sure if or what the best course of action would be if I were still going to the date. That was a little tricky there.
Right.
A lot of emotions running through my head and
understandable.
I guess calculations on the odds of survival and probability of being torn to pieces.
Right.
He was like a wild card with that date. That was like,
I thought you were going.
no one
and then
knew that you weren't going
Yeah.
until you literally made that phone call.
Well, I thought I was going until you basically saved Walter's life, as far as I'm concerned. I think as far as Walter's concerned, too.
Yeah.
You may have just earned yourself a good friend
I'm
there.
glad you didn't, but I was like, he's gonna go still. He's like, 'cause you were picking up pork. Like, I was like, he's still gonna go.
All that pork.
Yeah, and you beat me to my whole food test. All I was gonna do would be like, yeah, let's throw this in the oven too. I mean, it's a perfectly good bloody pork tenderloin. Yeah, I was just gonna see if she'd like zone
Let's
in
see how
on the
much we
blood
could eat.
dripping
You
down.
wanna have a wing eating contest? What do you? I don't know. What do you
Millie would
think?
win. But
Honestly.
Yeah.
Joey Chestnut ain't got shit on Millie.
later on, Lenny's boss, Chucky Merlino, calls and asks Lenny if he has seen Chucky's son, Skinny Joey. Skinny Joey has been missing for a few days.
I can't say I wasn't a little relieved. It's like a break from that kid, but I don't know if he's gonna show up again. Who knows?
Never
Still
knew.
trying to figure that one out. I thought it was related, but
After that business with Chucky calling Lenny and asking if they've seen Skinny Joey, it still looks like at that point that Walter is going to go to Millie's for the date. So was that your plan at that point?
I forget exactly when in the timeline Heather had told me, but once she mentioned the scar and that she was certain what we saw at the gallery was Millie, that I was just like, oh shit. Because being at half health and everything that went down the night before and how fortunate things were to have kept him alive, he was just like, yeah, I can't do that again.
Not going to go through that a second time.
So, yeah, I was pretty
Right.
sad.
But at this point in the story, it looks like you were going to head over there, and Millie actually called up Heather and asked her to come over to help change out the rug that was bloody.
Oh, at that point, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
At that point in the day, I was probably still thinking that I was going to go on the
You
date.
still were, but Heather comes over to help change out the rug. During that time period, Heather actually failed another roll, causing her to
it's
knock
shocking.
over a bookcase.
Shocking.
But it was actually a good thing. You wound up finding Millie's journal, which kind of documented her unhealthy obsession with Walter. Saying things like she wanted him to run his fingers down her spine like he runs fingers down the spine of the books.
grimy.
It just grossed me out, like, even more than when I listened to it earlier.
So during this time, when Heather is helping out Millie, she changes out the rug and she decides that she is going to help Millie get ready for her date. She puts a little makeup on Millie, helps her pick out a dress, helps her accessorize, and then she starts to brush Millie's hair. This is when Heather notices on Millie's forehead that she has a small circular scar exactly the same as the monster had at the auction attack. This confirms for Heather that the monster is her Aunt Millie.
Also, Millie wouldn't let me just do her hair like upstairs like a normal.
Don't go in my room.
Like when you normally get ready in your bedroom and your makeup's
That's right.
up
She
there
insisted
and all
that you
stuff.
do it downstairs where there was also a mirror. So she was like, well, I gotta go in my bedroom.
Yeah.
But Heather then tells Walter about the head scar and Millie's journal. At which point, this is when Walter dipped out of the date after hearing about the obsession. And he calls Millie and actually cancels the date. That was kind of a sad scene, actually.
It was a little sad.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. I mean, for days leading up to that session, I was kind of thinking about that, and it was just kind of like picking at my brain what I wanted to say, and just, you know, the overall sadness of it. Because, I mean, aside from the fact that Walter was totally into her as a, you know, I guess love interest, but certainly as a friend and another lover of fine literature, and then also how into Walter she seemed, as he came to learn later.
Right.
You know, I think there would have been a genuine connection there for Walter, and their love of books probably would have tied them together and helped sow the seeds for a nice relationship. But
Right.
I know. I wanted Walter to get lucky,
that's the way
but
the game is.
when you canceled the date, I picture Millie writing in the same diary, but like Regina George and Mean Girls, like, Walter is the fuggliest bitch. Like,
Fuck Walter, kill, kill, kill.
Yeah, once we kind of figured out that she may have been the, I guess, quote, first one of all the recent monsters that showed up, I felt pretty bad knowing that she was on her way out, and you know, she couldn't even enjoy that last date.
Right, yeah.
That's what makes it the worst. Couldn't even get that in.
This is the point where Walter gives them Millie's address. However,
Which I was going to try to do.
Walter has canceled the date with Millie, but Heather doesn't know that.
Which turned out to be awesome. I'm glad that you were like the last person to see her, because like I was already feeling pretty shitty, and there was at least a point where you could have interjected in some way and been like, no, this isn't going down like this. So I was glad that you had like the final say so.
yeah, I feel like Heather wouldn't be, as much as she was convinced and believes in all this stuff, it's still like her aunt, and it's like they're super close. So like she needed to see it to be like, okay, like she's a demon, like.
Which is good too, going back to that conversation where Walter was kind of wrestling with whether or not he should give the Russians her address, and he brought it up to you like, I need to include you in this decision, because this is above my pay grade suddenly.
She's your family.
So Heather does wind up sneaking over to her Aunt Millie's. She actually passed a disguise roll.
Which was cool.
So Millie didn't recognize her at all, even though she saw her on the street.
I like that she waters her plants in mid-November during like the coldest time of the year.
But Heather watches Ivan go into Millie's house, kind of push her inside. Then she goes to the back window and sees a struggle between Millie and Ivan, and sees Millie actually transform into the monster. And this was the final confirmation that Millie was a monster. After all this, they kind of regroup. Heather, Lenny, and Walter all regroup. And the investigators go to Millie's to see the scene and notice that the Russian's car is no longer there. They then drive out to the Bustleton area looking for the Russian's car, but don't find it. After all this, the investigators go home to their respective beds. And the next day, there's a news report that Mildred Thiebley is dead and mutilated. The body of an unknown male was in her house, and most of the dismembered remains of Vanessa Bellagrosso were there. So, what happened there?
What happened there, indeed?
What happened the night before Millie was attacked by the Russians, when she was getting ready for the date, she went all Windwalker and went to the Ventucci Art Gallery, killed Vanessa Bellagrosso, and brought her back to her house where she cut her up and started to cook her, trying to feed Vanessa to Walter for their date.
No!
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. So
she wanted to be windwalkers together.
yeah,
forever.
so she wanted to Walter to also turn into a windwalker, and that they would go together forever up into the Great White North. But that's not what happens.
Read books during the day, massacre people during the night. It's good life.
They would have been the cutest monsters.
We don't die, so we can do it forever.
I don't know if it's much reading.
Eventually, you hit a point where you're full windwalker all the time.
Eternal monsters, yeah. No more reading.
Yeah, that
But-
wouldn't have worked out then.
Holding hands with another windwalker.
Yeah, cute, right?
Little stick hands.
But instead, she's dead.
Aw,
She did.
walking on wind.
Farts.
That's where we ended the first chapter. That's the end of the first chapter, guys.
If it wasn't for the Russians, we wouldn't have done it.
Russians saved the day.
They saved the day.
So, guys,
The dirty work.
we, off of this recording, did the leveling up or the investigator development phase, which would have just been a bunch of rolling into the microphone and would have been dead air. But we'll start with Chad. Chad, what did you wind up raising on your skill sheet?
See, half of them were pretty fitting, I guess. His appraisal went up 9 points. I was pretty happy about that, given some exposure to some new things that he had never really worked with. Certainly far superior to the common antiques that he normally deals with. The Zoob and the statue itself, that is. Which actually, a little side note too, also having some prior experience with Call of Cthulhu, the fact that the item in question this time was like an art piece, I thought was pretty fun, as opposed to like, some old talisman or like an ancient book or I don't know, whatever else could be cursed and lying about. Pretty fun angle to work into the story, and led to a lot of depth and cool characters. So nicely done.
Oh, thanks, Ed.
It fit with Walter's interest for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And then I got a little bit more points into photography, listen, and psychology, which are all pretty useful things, particularly the last two. So I'm pretty happy.
Absolutely. That's great. So, Chuck, how did Lenny level up?
Extremely well. Although there was some failures on some things that I kind of wish I did pass, or I expected to, increase one way or another. My fighting went up, my fast talk, law, persuade, psychology, sleight of hand, spot hidden, and stealth.
Wow, you got a lot of them.
Although
going
spot
up.
hidden only
Very
went up
nice.
by 1 point,
Oh, okay.
but still,
It's an important one.
Yeah.
Any points in it is good.
so it's 46.
And
No,
and Jenny, how did Heather do with her leveling up?
She went up on like a lot, but a lot of just like 1 or 2 points. But it's cool.
Oh, gotcha.
Climb, disguise. Actually, no, it was like 9 on disguise, I think.
Oh, very good.
Spot hidden,
Nice. 'Cause you failed a lot of
psychology, and
those.
medicine. Yeah, and medicine went up
Nice.
like 8, I think.
Great.
So it's
Oh,
not-
very nice.
Not.
Oh, that's
Useful.
great.
But if
Good
you
to
want to
have
do it
around.
again, we could roll more. We could just,
No,
like,
we are not rolling
roll
anymore.
one.
No
Let's roll
rolling
some
this
more. Let's do
episode.
some more.
Wait, are we rolling right now?
Yeah, we're
Hold on.
rolling. Everybody, just
Oh.
roll. Just roll. Wild card. Just roll all of them at once, too.
I just wasted
Feels-
a 19.
Really nice.
Well, guys, thanks for doing this wrap-up episode. Let's get back into the game next.
Hit it.
Yeah, we're going to hit it up. And everybody remember, until our next game, sanity is overrated. Hey, this is George. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment. We are also a podcast that you can check out wherever you listen. We are on TikTok and Instagram at That Cthulhu Jawn, and you can email us with any questions or comments at thatcthulhujawn@gmail.com.